What if Hollywood never really lets its stars leave? Not poetically, but in a way that lingers. Because behind the glamour, old Hollywood was built on pressure, obsession, and unfinished lives. Fame came fast, peace didn't, and maybe that's why some stories don't feel over, just paused. Marilyn Monroe, the star in the mirror. Marilyn Monroe remains one of the most recognizable figures in entertainment history, even decades after her death in 1962. She wasn't just a movie star, she became a symbol. Beauty, vulnerability, fame, and loneliness all wrapped into one carefully constructed image that the world couldn't stop watching. Her life has been studied, debated, and documented endlessly, from her meteoric rise in films like Some Like It Hot to the unanswered questions surrounding her final days. But beyond the documented history, there's another layer to her story, one that refuses to fade quietly into the past. At the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, where she once lived early in her career, Monroe's presence seems to linger in a way that feels almost personal. Guests and staff have long shared unusual experiences connected to her former suite, and over time, these accounts have become part of Hollywood folklore. The most famous of these revolves around a mirror that was once part of her room. Visitors have reported catching glimpses of a reflection that doesn't quite align with reality. A blonde figure standing behind them, appearing for just a moment before vanishing when they try to focus on it. What makes this story so compelling isn't just the sighting itself, but how consistently it's been described across different people and decades. And that's where it becomes unsettling, because even in a world driven by logic, cameras, and constant surveillance, there are still moments that slip through explanation. Whether it's imagination influenced by expectation, or something more abstract, like the emotional imprint of a life lived intensely, Monroe's connection to that space has never fully disappeared. It raises a quiet, uncomfortable thought. Maybe some identities become so powerful, so deeply tied to a place, that they never completely leave it behind. Montgomery Clift, the actor who never left his role. Montgomery Clift was known for his intensity, both on and off screen. He was one of the defining actors of his time, but his life carried a level of personal struggle that often contrasted sharply with his success. While staying at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel during the filming of From Here to Eternity, he became tied to a space that, according to numerous accounts, still carries his presence. Guests who have stayed in room 928 have reported strange patterns, sounds that resemble footsteps, objects shifting slightly out of place, and even the faint sense of someone moving through the room when no one else is there. Some have described the experience as subtle rather than dramatic, which makes it even more unsettling. It doesn't feel like a performance. It feels like repetition, as if the energy of someone deeply immersed in their craft never fully left the environment. Whether that interpretation is psychological or something else entirely, the story has remained consistent over time. And consistency, in cases like this, is what keeps people listening. The Hollywood Roosevelt, where fame meets the unexplained. The Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel is more than just a historic building. It's a place where the early identity of Hollywood was shaped. Opened in 1927, it hosted the first Academy Awards and welcomed some of the most iconic names in film history. Over the years, it has accumulated not just stories of success, but also stories that don't fit neatly into history books. Guests have reported unexplained phone calls, cold spots in otherwise normal rooms, and fleeting shadows that don't seem to belong to anyone present. There are also accounts of a young girl seen wandering the hallways, often described in similar ways by different individuals who had no connection to each other. These reports don't prove anything on their own, but together they create a pattern, one that has become part of the hotel's identity. It's not just known for luxury or history anymore, it's known for something else. Something that people can't quite explain, but also can't completely dismiss. The Belasco Theater, applause that never ended. The Belasco Theater in Los Angeles carries its own version of this phenomenon. Built in the early 20th century, it was once the creative domain of David Belasco, a theatrical producer known for his attention to detail and deep involvement in every aspect of his productions. Even after his death, stories began to circulate that he never truly left the space. Staff and performers have described moments where lights behave unpredictably, doors shift without reason, and an unexplainable presence seems to linger during rehearsals and performances. Some claim to have seen a figure in the balcony or backstage areas, often described in a way that matches Belasco himself. What makes these accounts compelling is not their intensity, but their familiarity. They don't sound exaggerated. They sound routine, as if the building has simply adapted to something that has always been there. And in a place built for performance, the idea of an audience member who never leaves adds a strange kind of continuity to the space. Why these stories refuse to fade. There's a reason these stories continue to exist, and it's not just because people enjoy being scared. Old Hollywood was an environment filled with emotional extremes. Careers were built quickly and could collapse just as fast. Public images were carefully controlled, often hiding personal struggles that never made it into headlines at the time. When you combine intense human experiences with specific physical locations, those places begin to carry meaning beyond their structure. They become tied to memory, identity, and sometimes unresolved narratives. Over time, those associations can shape how people perceive their surroundings. A quiet hallway doesn't feel empty anymore. It feels watched. A mirror doesn't just reflect, it suggests. And once that perception is established, it becomes self-reinforcing. Each new story adds another layer, making the next experience feel more believable. The line between reality and story. It's important to be clear about one thing. There is no scientific evidence proving that these stars are still present in any physical or supernatural form. The experiences reported at places like the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel or the Belasco Theater are based on personal accounts, not measurable proof. But that doesn't make them irrelevant. In fact, it makes them more interesting because they reveal how powerful environment, history, and expectation can be when combined. When people walk into a place knowing who stayed there, what happened there, and what others have claimed to experience, their perception changes. They become more aware, more sensitive to small details, more likely to interpret ambiguity as something meaningful. And that's where these stories live, in the space between what is seen and what is felt. Hollywood's quiet echo. Maybe the real story isn't about ghosts at all. Maybe it's about how certain places refuse to let go of the people who defined them. Hollywood, especially in its early years, was filled with individuals who gave everything to their craft, their time, their identity, sometimes even their sense of self. And when that level of intensity becomes part of a place, it doesn't disappear easily. It lingers in reputation, in architecture, in the way people talk about it years later. So when someone says they felt a presence or saw something they couldn't explain, it might not be about something supernatural. It might be about history, experienced in a way that feels immediate instead of distant. And maybe that's what makes old Hollywood so haunting, not just the stories people tell, but the fact that some questions were never fully answered. Because when the lights go off and the cameras stop rolling, not every story fades away. Some just stay. So, if you want more videos that uncover the secrets history never fully explained, make sure to like and subscribe.